G'day and welcome to another big edition of the RDFNL Footy Show. Looking ahead to the big round 4 action. My name's Yeendy. I'm joined by Tara Murray. Thanks for joining us again this week. It's all shaping up to be an interesting round 4 in the RDFNL.
It is. We've got a couple of the top sides matching up and a couple of the bottom sides matching up as well. So expecting them to be some close matches and a couple of sides looking to get their first win of the year.
Absolutely. It's probably going to be one of the hardest rounds to tip if you are a tipster. As we look at the first game, Lancefield and Wallen.
It is. This is an interesting one. Two sides coming off wins. So we haven't said this very often the last couple of years that Lancefield's coming off a win, but they had a really, really good win against Broadford. Saying that, I think the Magpies will be too strong. And for the Magpies, for them, it's about looking at getting that four-quarter performance. The last 2 weeks, they've had to come from behind at three-quarter time to get the win. So I think this time, expecting them to try and get that four-quarter performance and have a dominant win.
How do you think Lancefield will match up against the Wallen outfit?
Look, I think Wallen's going to be too strong. And I think Wallen possibly a little bit more pace. Obviously, they've got a lot of younger players. Yeah. And that's where I think it's going to be the key, that I think Wallen will be way too strong. Yeah,
I could also see Lancefield also taking the game up to them as well, at least for the first half. For the confidence they generated last week was so instrumental to not only to the team, but the club and the town itself.
And that's it. Confidence is an amazing thing. You get that one win on the board, players lift another level. So, as you said, it could quite possibly be a lot closer than some people expect. Yeah, and Wallen are coming off 2 incredible victories, and to be able to come from behind like they did against Sunbury Kangaroos when their backs are up against the wall over the last couple of weeks, it says a lot about their team and the ability to work hard when the pressure's really on. It is, yeah, definitely. And that's what, look, I think Magpies will be still too strong, but whether those 2 wins have taken their toll will be one thing to keep an eye on. Watch that one with great interest as well. Watch the next game with great interest. Riddle versus Melton Centrals. This is going to be a danger game for the Bombers. Exactly. Looking into the season, you go, okay, yep, you'd expect the Bombers to win this quite easy, but the Bombers are 0-3. Centrals are 1-2, but they've been in their other 2 games up until the second half, so I think this will be quite interesting. I expect the Bombers to get over the line and get their first win of the season. If they go 0-4, that's danger sides. They were, I think, 1-4 last year, but 0-4 this year to start the year when they're expected to be among those top sides would be a big concern. I think a lot of the concern will be about being able to get goals away outside Dylan Weir, and I think the Treewick boys there for the Bombers, they do match up well against good tall opposition, which I think they'll do quite well this week. The Bombers also got the ability to throw Ben Sonigan back if they need to. Even with Braden Allen, he could drift back as well. So they've got that option there to really clog up the space on that big Riddle ground. So I think the key for the Centrals there is that who else kicks their goals. It is, and exactly. And Dylan Whitty has made an instant impact since coming into this competition. Centrals needed to get a big goal kicker to allow Blake Henderson to play a bit more in the ruck, and it's allowed that. And Dylan has, I think he kicked 4 on the weekend, and he's kicked bags in the first 2. So he's the key there up forward. But as you said, they need to find other avenues to goal. Yeah, and if they can do that, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to come from behind and pull this victory off there, because the talent is there, and I think that's great for the competition. It is, and that's what I'm expecting it to be, a close one. Early before the season, a lot of people might have thought a one-sided one, but both of these teams will be looking for a win this week. But saying that, there's every chance that the Bombers will really turn it on as well, and it could be a significant margin in their favour. So that all sort of depends. They're looking for their first win, and Centrals have already got that one on the board. As we turn our attention to the next game, another one that will go down to the wire, and they had a very close game last year in their last meeting, is Romsey versus Wood and Heskett. Exactly, it's another interesting game. Both these sides are looking to play finals, and you've got the Hawks who are coming into this game on the back of the 3-0 start to the season, but they were expected to win those 3 matches. Obviously, they played 3 of the lower sides, where Romsey's probably that first one of those higher sides that people are expecting them to be in a contest with. And then they've got 2 really tough matches the following 2 weeks. I think they've got Rupert's Wood and Diggers Rest following that. So for the Hawks, this is crucial. If they can get 4-0, that's a good start to the season before they hit some of those stronger teams. For Romsey, they'll be looking to, it's a team they'd expect to beat. Both of these are both pretty young, and they've both got a lot of talent in their side. How do you see this one going? I've tipped the Hawks, but I think this could go either way. The Redbacks are building. We haven't seen the best of them yet. Obviously, they had a tough start to the season, as we've spoken about beforehand, and I think they're starting to build, so it could quite easily go either way. I think I'll be leaning more towards the Hawks, because we have seen some really good form from them, and last week's win, as
as you mentioned earlier on in the week, it wasn't about the margin, it was about just sort of getting their processes in place, and I think they would be very satisfied with how that went, and using Gawthrop, who kicked 7 goals, and a few other players that really sort of stepped up and share that workload around, I think is fantastic. But we've seen more of the Hawks, and we've seen more of them at their best, so there's probably more the unknown about Romsey, because we've seen a really ordinary performance, but a strong performance against a team that they'll be challenging for a spot in the finals.
And you'll look at both teams have played Melton Centrals, and both teams had to fight late to get the lead, so both were trailing against Melton Central, so they had similar performances against that side, if that's any comparison. So yeah, it could quite easily be a close one.
Another big game we've got, and this is the one that a really easy old toss of a coin, Rockbank and Broadford.
This could go either way. You've got two sides looking to get wins. Both sides have come off really big losses, so it'll be an interesting one to see how they respond to where they're going. Both sides have improved each week, but it has been tough for them going.
I think they both kicked 5 goals last week as well, from memory too, so they were able to hit the scoreboard. Rockbank had their biggest score of the season, and I think Broadford did as well, from memory too, so it's making this a very, very hard one to tip.
It is. I have tipped Rockbank, but it could quite easily go either way. I think confident, whichever side wins, it's going to be a confidence booster. If
Broadford were able to get some of their under 19 and halves into that senior team, particularly Scully across half back, who was instrumental last week, and I think they'll be a big chance here, and they might just have a little bit of speed, and I think that might just play into their hands a little bit. But it's always hard winning. I think they're playing away at Rockbank. I think that's always going to be a tough one too.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for both these sides. So this could be another close one, or as we have seen last week, we thought Lancefield-Broadford was going to be a close one, but that happened to be a blowout. So either side would be looking for this win.
Saturday night football, we've got the Sunbury Kangaroos and Macedon, and the Kangaroos they will be without Dan Gregory up against the Macedon side, who are feeling a little bit sore after the loss against the Rupert's Wood side on Anzac Day, but they'll probably get a few of those guns back with Casey Summerfield to come back into play too.
It is, and obviously they've had a week and a half break as well, so they've had that little later break. This could be quite interesting. We've got Macedon, who are the reigning premiers, who have a lot of strong players who we haven't seen the best of yet. They just got a loss across the line in Riddle. They did what they had to do in round 2, and then they had a big loss to the Sharks in round 3. And then you've got Sunbury, who they've only got 1 win, but the 2 losses have come against Wallen and Rupert's Wood, and they were competitive in both of those games. So I think Sunbury has surprised a lot of people that they're probably a little bit better than what people expected. I'm expecting them to take it up to the Cats, but I'd still say the Cats are going to have too much strength at the end. Yeah,
I also think that the disadvantage for the Cats is they don't really have a good record at Bournemouth Reserve anyway. That's something they haven't had over for quite a number of years. I think they managed to win there, I think, the last couple of times, but it hasn't really been that easy for them for quite some time.
And that is a tricky ground at times. Depends on which way the wind's going. If it's going towards the Mitchell's Lane Road, that end can be quite tricky with the wind down there. So, look, it can be tricky, but I still think the Cats have got too much depth. Yeah, I'm with you. Probably only just. And saving this one to last, because I'm going to let you call this one. We've got Rupert's Wood and Diggers Rest. Your thoughts? This could quite easily be the grand final preview. Yep. Both of these sides, I like what both of these sides have done. They finished 2nd and 3rd last year. They've got a lot of depth with young players coming through, and they've both topped up with players coming into the side. They've both had 4 or 5 players who have had more experience at playing at a higher level. You've got some coming from Essendon District, you've got a couple with the VFL experience, and you've got all these guys coming in, and both sides have shown early on that they are strong teams. You look last week, Diggers Rest beat Riddle, Rupert's Wood beat Macedon, 2 sides everyone else expects to be up there, so it could quite easily be a grand final preview. How do you see this one unfolding? Look, I think the Sharks, what they've shown so far, I think the last 2, they've beat Macedon, they've beat Wallen, who are 2 really, really good sides. We've seen Diggers Rest was probably a little bit closer against Riddle. They did beat Broadford, but none of us expect Broadford to be up towards the top of the ladder. So I think the Sharks will win this. And obviously being down at the Tank, it is a little bit harder down there, and it is a hard scoring ground. But it's another close game that could go either way. I'm probably leaning a bit more towards Diggers, because I mean I watched both sides in round 3, but I did like the run that Diggers Rest had across half back. They're able to sort of switch Stewie Clark from half back to half forward. Tommy Gleeson, he controlled the back line. He was able to push forward a little bit as well. I love the work if he can play. Andrew Tyquin, he shows electrifying speed off half back. A really good player there, and they've got a forward line structure which is very impressive. Luke Smales,
He can play forward. He played a lot in the back line last week. Brent Tuckey was up forward. He provided a main target. And that really works well for them. Lockie Langford impressed. Freeth had a pretty quiet game, and he doesn't have too many of those. Egan in the ruck. I mean, there's a lot of versatility, and that was the part that I probably really enjoyed most is seeing guys like Luke Smales being able to drift to the back line there if needed to provide a little bit of run, but he can also go forward and kick match-winning goals.
And I think that's probably Burrows weren't happy with how they finished last year, but they probably got a lot more flexibility out of their side because they had injuries, they had players out, they had to switch people around, and it's benefiting them this year. And obviously those guys they've brought in, they've looked to fill those holes they've got, so players can go back to what their natural position is. So probably their backline strengthened a little bit because last year they were lacking forward. Who was going to kick the goals for them forward? They've added a couple more forward options, which strengthens them at the other end of the ground as well. So this could quite easily go either way. Both have been impressive early on, and it's a game I'm going to head down to and looking forward to watching.
And I think another interesting part for Diggers as well is that they are missing two of potentially their best 5 players. You look at Paddy Jackson and Carl Morton, who are enjoying having stints on the sidelines. Once those boys get back into the team, that's going to be horrific. And regardless of what happens with this result, if we do see them playing off in the big one, if Rupo are at full strength, Diggers are at full strength, look, I think it's going to be an amazing contest.
And that's the scary thing. Neither side is playing at full strength at the moment. I think Rupert's Wood was still missing 4 or 5. You've got Diggers Rest is missing players, and they've got guys to come back in. So that's the scary thing. There is still got more depth in both of these sides that we haven't seen.
So it really will be a toss of the game, a toss of the coin for that one. But that's fantastic. Tara, thanks so much for joining us on this week's edition of the RDFNL Footy Preview Show. And we look forward to catching up with you next week to look back on what Round 4 provided for us.
Thanks for having us.